Greetings, fellow humans. I am Hugh.
And I am Man.
And together we are definitely not
Two
kobolds in a trench coat. We enjoy human activities, such as paying taxes,
Having existential crises,
and RPG horror stories. Let's see what we've got today.
First up, we have a dwarf who mass poisons only the elf women at a ball, a DM who needs a serious lesson in how consent works, and a DM who almost turns the party's tiny hut into a tomb.
Vindictive dwarf poisons and murders all the elven ladies at the ball, including me, then unalives himself. By Reddit user Poisoned Elf. It's 2003-2004-ish. We were playing Core 3.5 over AIM. I was an elf, either a wizard or a paladin, don't remember which. Level 8, we go to a cave infested with super duper class leveled kobolds and rescue noble women prisoners, plus this dwarf guard captain. He's gruff and doesn't say much. All he does during the trip back is grumble about elves. The DM really put a lot of effort into the dwarves whining.
So we have a classic dwarves hate elves trope already.
Yep, we have another one of those. It's quite a common problem. I think a lot of players do really lean into it, just because it has been implied in a lot of fantasy about, particularly in Lord of the Rings, about difficult relations between dwarves and elves, and then into other things, and a lot of players just take that into a full-blown racism.
People will take it out of context, turn it into racism.
People seem to focus more on that part about dwarves, about them being quick to dislike or even hate other people. However, Tolkien specifically wrote fast in friendship and fast in enmity. This means if you are their friend and earn their friendship, they will be loyal as hell. Whereas if you upset them, they will be vengeful as hell. But they always forget about that extreme friendship and loyalty part.
There's just, I hate elves. And that's their whole entire personality.
Thank you for attending my TED Talk on the writings of J.R.R. Tolkien. A week later, the capital's throwing a royal ball, mostly for the nobles, and of course we're invited. The invitation told us to dress in our best finery and to look our total best for the occasion. The DM roleplays frivolous stuff with us, like buying dresses for the ball, getting hairdos and makeup done, practicing walking in high heels and dining etiquette, girly stuff like that. Most of us just go to the ball in armor anyway, but not me.
Side note, I love that. I think that's adorable.
Shopping episodes are overrated. Dressing and putting on finery episodes are definitely where it's at.
And learning to walk in high heels.
Important skills. Dexterity check. The ball starts. The noble women we rescued are there. So is the dwarf guard captain. The party bard seduces the princess and takes her somewhere for some fun. Near the end of the ball, the queen orders a toast. Fort save from me. I roll pretty damn high but fail anyway. Then I eat a big mountain of con damage and I'm at 0 con. The DM describes my character vomiting blood, bile, and all the food she just ate. Then she falls over into her own vomit, and her poofy dress flips up to show her undies.
I'm sorry, what?
Did a cartwheel while vomiting.
Okay. I feel like that was just added in gratuitously, to be fair.
A little bit, but you know, it's important to describe these things as well. It's not like it's particularly violent. It's just describing the typical scenes on any main street outside the nightclubs on a Saturday night. Same goes for every other elf lady in the ball. Just ladies, not the elf men. The elf ladies are all dead and my character's just a statistic. The DM says that the last thing the elf ladies see is the dwarf captain get up on the table and yell something like, "No dwarf will ever have his honour stolen by an elf," or "I can ne'er have my honour stained by a prissy elf harlot." Turns out he laced all the drinks for the elven women with a super magically hard to detect poison with crazy con damage. Then our corpses became zombies or stuff like that. The DM said I could re-roll, but I just left.
So the dwarf captain, was he a DMPC then?
Yeah, I think it was a DM NPC.
Okay, so it wasn't another player.
No, this was the DM enacting mass murder at the ball.
Why?
Those dwarves gotta be racist to elves, man.
But only elf women. Why?
Again, that's what makes it even weirder, is you're adding misogyny as well as racism.
I mean, it's just another thing on the evil bingo card.
I can't comprehend why it was only the elf women beyond just some ingrained misogyny. Because surely if you are leaning into the dwarf hating elves arc, why then just target women? I mean, was there something in this dwarf's backstory about his heart being broken by an elf woman or something like that? So that I don't know. We obviously don't know that.
It doesn't count because she's a girl by Mr. Sapiosexual. DM advertised this campaign was an LGBTQ plus safe space. The problem player was an enchantment wizard going the whole femme fatale route. I should have seen the first red flag from the NSFW AI art Miss Cerebellum ripoff that was their character portrait, but I didn't think much of it at the time. First dang session. They attempt to seduce the cute barkeep. DM lets them roll persuasion. The roll fails, and the barkeep is flattered, but she's not interested. In spite of that, they continue attempting to flirt with the barkeep incessantly, even though it's clear at this point that some of us, I know I certainly was, were getting uncomfortable with the blatant flirting that was bordering on harassment. The DM doesn't say anything, and still has the barkeep be polite and flattered.
Okay, we're getting the first signs here of the red flags. Like the polite but flattered thing, maybe they should be a bit more outraged. Maybe the DM is just trying to avoid escalation. They don't want a big reaction from there, and they're just trying to, keep it calm. Let's not raise the emotional tensions here just yet.
The barkeep is obviously going to have good customer service skills, so she's going to be nice, but not interested. The DM could have shut it down and been like, okay, buddy, move on.
Yeah, the DM could have done stuff at that point to try and maybe more forcefully de-escalate. But, it's a barkeep who's probably used to it, so maybe they're just trying to really brush it off without escalating into something more and getting a reaction. But then again, you should not be afraid to say no forcefully if someone is not taking no for an answer.
It's okay to be rude if somebody's being rude to you. Eventually, after not seemingly getting what they want, they use the Enchantment Wizard subclass feature, Hypnotic Gaze, to charm the barkeep. DM says that it only works for one turn, aka 6 seconds. They said, that's fine, and proceed to describe how they French kiss and grope the charmed barkeep for the duration. At this point, I and the others were like, bro, what the F? DM still doesn't put a stop to it. Instead, roleplays how the barkeep regains her wits and is a blushing mess, and after the kiss, she was suddenly more receptive to the advances. I'm like, that's assault. And I kid you not, the DM said, it doesn't count because she's a girl. Needless to say, I left the server. Jesus Christ.
Oh, that's alarming. It sounds like this is one of those male fantasies where they just imagine a woman who's saying no just needs to be forcefully taken and shown what an alpha you are in order to then become receptive.
That mixed with the whole lesbian fetishizing aspect, because obviously they were both women.
Oh, that's true. Yes, they were both women. It's only something that really comes up at the end of the story there.
Yeah, because the PC was a woman.
But I still think that initial assessment applies. However, you then throw in the fact that the DM doesn't seem to believe that women can do this to other women.
Yeah, it's really gross. Good job, OP, for just quitting. There was no saving that. When you know that the DM is gonna play out SA situations and be like, it's fine, get out now.
Yeah, sounds like the rest of the party were horrified, so hopefully they left and the campaign collapsed. It's one thing if it's a player, you can remove them. When it's the DM, there's no saving the situation, and it's good to just get out before it repeats itself. You can't have fun if you're constantly nervous your DM's gonna pull stuff like that.
Obviously, it's really sad that it was advertised as an LGBTQ plus safe space, because clearly it was just an excuse for dudes to play out their lesbian fantasy.
I buried my party alive in their tiny hut for some light tension, and it nearly derailed the campaign and ended the world. By Reddit user, PM me about D&D.
The title alone? How do you bury somebody alive for light tension?
That sounds pretty high tension to me.
Just a little light tension, just gonna bury you alive for, you're not gonna die. You're just it's fine.
You're just gonna slowly run out of oxygen. The party was on a 2-day hike up the coast, and I really didn't have much planned for them because we were already lagging behind the pacing I was aiming for. The problem is, the players were terrified of the landscape, jumping at shadows and pondering in hushed tones to each other what might come next. This is a level 13 party. I did not think they could be scared. See, they had just learned the hard way why magic is outlawed on this planet. When the ocean spawned a T-Rexis creature that could apparently cast every spell that the party had cast in some recent time frame. They also currently assume its strength was proportional to the value of the spell slots used. Problem is, they used a ton more magic in between the T-Rex showing up and now, before they started to put the pieces together. Hence, them being on edge while walking coast on this journey. What if something else showed up like that? So on this journey to their next destination, location only vaguely known, where they hope to finally learn some more about this place, I rolled a d20. My intention was essentially that if I got a 15 to 20, people from their target destination would find them early. Otherwise spend some more time outdoors. In comes the nat 1. I just shook my head in disappointment, but the players gasped and looked like they had just seen a ghost. Nat 1s must be bad, they're thinking. Especially for a random encounter, right? So I knew I had to do something.
This is an interesting concept that he produces a creature that basically throws the magic back at them that they recently used.
Yeah, I like that as a creature. It gives something very creative and ties it into what the party have been doing. Personally linking the party to what's going on, either through their backstories or what they've done recently, is very good storytelling.
You always know that you've sown a little bit of fear into your players when they gasp at a nat 1. In my campaign, we laugh because that usually means something funny is going to happen.
As a DM, it's good to instill a healthy amount of fear in your party, that you could just do something at any point that will cause them a real headache. It's part of the fun. I had plans for more of these magic-enhanced creatures, just nothing definitive for some time. So after they set up their tiny hut, I had the next creature come out from the ocean during a random watch hour. This one taking the form of a giant. The intention was for them to see it, poop their pants a little, and know that it was out there in the world. It technically shouldn't even be their problem, as their mission on this planet is unrelated. But who knows? Players, am I right? Anyways, they kind of see it defeat a dragon, but mostly just hear the battle. It stomps towards them, again, mostly using audio descriptions as the party is only about 50-50 dark vision and that's only 60 feet. It sees their tiny hut on the shoreline and begins angrily stomping on it.
What, they don't all have dark vision?
Wow, a party where every member doesn't have dark vision? What sorcery is this?
And you call yourself a D&D party.
Seriously though, if they knew this giant was fighting a dragon or some other creature and they could hear that, why didn't they take that chance to escape? They just hid in their tiny hut. That was clearly a diversion that they could have used to get out of there.
Yeah, also, if your intention was to make them just kind of poop their pants a little, why did you have the giant come at them and stomp on their hut?
Yeah, the giant could have just ignored it or not thought much of it and moved on if you just wanted to scare them. That's when, I get it, you wanted to maybe have some fun. But if your intention was just to scare them, maybe not have the creature engage their tiny hut.
Yeah, that's the thing. If you have a creature that your party is not meant to fight, have the mechanics of how you introduce them or just how the creature works. Make it obvious that this is not meant for engagement. And in a situation where you have a creature coming out of the sea and then going and defeating a dragon, it could easily see the tiny hut and all that situation as being just not even worth its time and walk away. And then you avoid them potentially having to think that they need to be in combat.
Yeah, there's no reason that creature needs to think the tiny hut is anything other than a glowing rock. The part where it all goes wrong. Anyways, so if you are just joining us, a big guy is stomping on the tiny hut. Again, my plan for this is to just give them a few nightmares about this new world before moving on. A memorable scene. This is also basically the end of the session. I describe how the tiny hut started to slowly dig into the ground with each stomp. They're level 13. They have a wizard. It really was just a fun set piece. But no, they freak out. They start talking about fighting this thing. My internal monologue was screaming, no, 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 no. As one, I didn't have a stat block entirely ready. 2, the nat 1 from earlier and all the preceding events had maybe caused me to improv a slightly overcorrected foe in descriptive strength than maybe what I should have. And 3, they just had a big old superpowered monster fight. Didn't want to repeat so soon.
Okay, so like we said before, if you weren't expecting them to engage with this monster, or freak out for that matter, why did you have it stomp on the hut?
I mean, at this point, they could have had it start stomping on the hut and then walk away and get bored once they realised they weren't getting anywhere from that.
The fact that the DM's like, they just freaked out, like, what's wrong with them? I'm like, I would freak out too if it was me and I was a player.
DM seems surprised that they freaked out and then goes on to describe exactly why they might be freaking out as a party. They're tapped, this thing appears super strong, and they're trapped directly underneath it. That's quite a lot of reasons to freak out.
That's a lot. Also, this whole thing of like, they have a wizard, so like, probably used up a good number of its spell slots on the T-Rex earlier.
Luckily, they discard the plan to fight quickly. I made it sound scary enough. Yay me? And so they moved on to discussing a new plan. Phew. One where they just all scattered out of the tiny hut in random directions and hoped only some of them would be caught. Wait, what? Somebody chimed in. That sounded like fighting it, but with extra steps and more death. Back to the drawing board. I described how the tiny hut started to get covered in dirt with each stomp, forming a bit of a skylight out of their hut. Loose dirt, mind you. I'm sitting here thinking they can dig or magic their way out in the morning. A fun puzzle challenge. But they panic again, and the wizard suggests teleportation circle. Oh no.
Well, that makes sense that the wizard would suggest that.
Yeah, that's a magical solution to getting out of that problem eventually.
Yeah, I don't know how the mechanics of this world work. I don't know why that was an oh no situation. Here's the other thing I'm kind of wondering about. You have the tiny hut buried under the ground. How does the oxygen supply work?
Well, tiny hut lasts for 8 hours, I think, before it drops, and then it just releases. So they're not in any danger of running out of oxygen. That's just not factored into tiny hut.
But it's an enclosed area, right?
Yeah, it is.
And it's underneath the ground where there's no oxygen.
Magic! He recognised the problem. Well, some of it at least. They had just gotten to this planet. He had no known circles here. Their spelljammer was parked in orbit over this planet. If they went off-world, which we've allowed previously since 5e Raw, it's material plane to material plane. It would be like Alt F4ing this entire campaign thread. Also, unbeknownst to the players yet, if they left, by the time they found a way back, this planet would have gone belly up. Citation: see big magic monsters above and other game-specific details. The party latches onto this plan. They talk about it, they're buried some more. Talk some more. They're ready to GTFO and figure out the consequences later. I, the DM, definitely am not. I describe how they're finally fully covered by dirt and earth, and the stomping stops as the beast walks away, thinking that I'd let them stop and reconsider their options. Nope. The wizard says they begin casting the spell.
Okay, so I see what the oh no was, because they didn't have any other places to teleport to other than their spaceship. My question is also still the oxygen issue, because now it's fully submerged. Because I would understand if there's a little skylight, okay, fine, air can get in that way. But now they're fully submerged, dude.
I mean, if you consider the principle that Tiny Hut has a semi-permeable membrane that allows oxygen to pass in and carbon dioxide to pass out, sure. If you assume it works that way and oxygen just isn't magically produced by the Tiny Hut.
Well, the thing is that that's not really defined with the use of the Tiny Hut, because nobody buries it underground. So it's very possible that that could be a mechanic. That would make sense to me anyway.
Yes, that sounds science.
It's science.
Science, not magic, kids. D&D is a world of science. The barbarian chimes in during the cast time and says, "Isn't it just like a few feet of some dirt?" The others say yes, but he's the only strong one and they might have real troubles with this or that blah blah. Really digging their heels in about this apparently impossible scenario. Determined to head off world instead of dig a little or something. Finally, the barbarian says, "Okay, but what if I cast reverse gravity?" After some confused silence and many looks around the group, he mentions it's something his amethyst lodestone can do. Something he's had for ages and never used or talked about that feature. So that was a good time, and that's what they did come morning. TLDR, party is buried, players decide to go nuclear and leave the planet. DM's Fitbit thinks he ran a marathon at 11 PM, and the barbarian decided to defeat some dirt with a level 7 spell that nobody knew he had. Oh, and thanks to their exceptional solution, I now also get to have a monster that can reverse gravity them later. So I consider that an absolute win for everyone involved. I apologise if this was tricky or uninteresting to follow. The whole thing baffled me so much that I just had to put it on paper and clear my head.
Okay, well that ended well, I guess.
I did have a bit of a concern when the barbarian first said he casts a spell, and I'm just like, is that like a barbarian hitting someone with a frying pan and saying, "I cast iron"?
Right? Actually, that'd be really funny if that was. But hey, at least he had some way to get them out of there, and hey, the barbarian saves the day, and also it's going to come back to bite them in the butt later.
The barbarian saves the day with magic and his brain. Just let that sink in.
I really think that a lot of this could have been avoided if the DM had just thought for 2 seconds. I mean, I don't know how experienced this person is, so maybe this is like their first time running a campaign and they just don't understand how players work. Was reading the comments, and somebody said, like, never assume that players will figure out what you're trying to do and circumvent things in a logical way to you.
I think the DM had a lot of opportunities to avoid putting them in this situation if they didn't want them to be in that situation. Like, it's one thing if you thought, okay, I'm going to put them in this situation and see how they get out of that, because it is kind of fun seeing them try to figure that out. But also the DM seems aggravated that they're in this situation when they're the one putting them in this situation in the first place, when they had outs to avoid it.
Right? Like, why are you so surprised that they're freaking out and trying to get off the planet when you literally have a huge giant stomping on them and burying them underground?
Yeah, this does sound like a bit self-inflicted exacerbation from the DM, unfortunately. D&D parties panic in those situations, especially when they're tapped. They can easily just become panicky idiots. And then to sound surprised when you've put them in a very easy to panic situation.
Come on, man.
Yeah, look, I enjoyed this story a lot. I do enjoy the conclusion of them being buried in their tiny huts. I think that's a very fun concept and could definitely be something introduced into campaigns in the future.
Hey, maybe you're trying to hide your hut from others. Maybe bury it under the ground. This was a situation that the DM fully created for themselves, and I feel no sympathy for them. I do feel a little sympathy for the players, though, because the DM seemed way too excited to reverse gravity them.
Hey, don't deny DMs their sadistic pleasure.
I never would, but I'm telling you, the DM set the situation up, so it feels a little weird that they get revengey about it. Hey, Hugh.
Yes, man?
Why did nobody trust the low dexterity wizard?
I don't know. Why didn't they trust them?
Because he can trip at any moment.
And with that, we have definitely not been
Two kobolds in a trench coat.
Be sure to like, comment, subscribe, and make the necessary sacrifices to Tiamat. We'll see you next time.